What is up? What is up, everybody? This is KME. This I don't even know what to call this show. This is my first solo wrestling outing that I decided that I was going to do today because I was feeling some type of way about WWE, Sasha Banks, and kind of the way the wrestling media was treating the Sasha Banks story. So I was like, I could wait for one of the shows that I usually participate in, uh, and or one of the shows that I'm one of the stars on to broadcast, but this is just a little too much right now, and I had to kind of go online. So let me see what is going on with my StreamYard because I am looking at my name tag and it says test, and this ain't no test. Let me just double check and make sure everything is on the up and up. Thank you for your patience with me. This is KME. Looks like things are working, so we will just ignore that test thing. I'll fix it in a second, um, and get on with the get on. So, anyway, actually, let me just go on ahead and because that is going to get on my damn nerves. So, let me fix that. But anyway, I wanted to talk about Sasha Banks, um, and why I feel a way about this, and Sasha Banks and Naomi. So, unless you are just not paying attention to what is going on in the wrestling space, Sasha Banks and Naomi um, essentially walked out on Monday Night Raw. Last Monday, they were supposed to be a part of the show. I believe Dave Meltzer, Sean Ross Sapp, and the like are reporting they were supposed to be a part of a six-pack challenge, and they decided they ain't about that life tonight. So they took their ball and went home, so to speak, took their proverbial ball and went home. And that was all the brouhaha this weekend, or this week in WWE. Basically, these two women, they didn't want to cooperate. They didn't want to do what WWE asked them to do, and they went home. It got so bad that WWE released a statement on these women saying that, hey, they left without notice, just put their desks on a table after talking to John Laurinaitis and walked home. So, as a skeptical member of the wrestling media, I took that as okay, what the hell did WWE do this time to these women? Because usually when shit like that goes down, I my mind goes to automatically blaming WWE, especially when it involves um two black people on the roster, especially when it involves two black women. And people will ask me, so KME, what evidence do you have that it's involving race? You know what I'm saying? Why must you automatically go to, oh, this involves race? Um and my whole thing is, look, I've seen the way WWE operates before. This is not anything new. If you watch WWE, um like I do, I mean, I've seen my evidence is Kamala. My evidence is Saba Simba. My evidence is them jobbing Kofi Kingston in 20 seconds on that first episode of SmackDown. my evidence is them jobbing Bianca Belair, um, and just not in 20 seconds after that small reign. This is the kind of stuff that I'm used to with WWE and their black talent. It just is what it is. I'm not saying anybody is overtly racist. I don't know what's in Vince McMahon's heart or the brass at WWE. I don't know what's in their heart. It's not for me to pass that kind of judgment. So I'm not going to do that. But what I will say of what I've seen in WWE with my own two eyes is does not paint WWE in a good light when it comes to these matters involving racial sensitivity and just caring about what people go through. You know what I'm saying? I grew up in the attitude era, in the ruthless aggression era. I've seen the Katie Vick stuff. You know what I'm saying? I've seen uh, HLA, just promoted on TV. I've seen, um, just discrimination after discrimination after discrimination. And it does kind of, after a while, it makes me wonder, you know, what the hell am I watching at a certain point? Is this stuff for me? Is WWE do they care about me in their audience? Who is their audience? These are questions I don't firmly know the answer to. I wish I did know the answer to them, but I don't. And that's just because they've kind of let me know over the years that doing things like the way they just abruptly ended um, NXT, the version of NXT that I liked, that all of my friends liked, and they just gave us this 2.0 stuff. Um, this is what kind of tells me WWE just might not be something that's for me anymore. And that's okay. Outside of reviewing it, I don't watch WWE as a leisure activity most of the time. Sometimes I do. It's necessary for the job and the podcast that we do. But a lot of the times it's just kind of like one of those things where I just kind of have to get get to the point where I understand that WWE is not appealing to my demographic because it's just not entertaining, especially NXT 2.0. So, if I can find WWE's statement they released on Sasha Banks and Naomi, I will do that. Um, so I'm not talking out of my ass and misquoting people, because I thought the statement um, that I read originally was kind of funny, kind of laughable, and just gives me cause to pause. Again, I'm not in the business uh, of trustling of trusting WWE. WWE lost the benefit of the doubt with me a long, long time ago. So let me see. Unpacking, blah, 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 blah. I'm just going down. WWE released a statement. Okay, let's see if this has it. And just follow along with me, and we will get through this together. Uh, and again, I'm still kind of getting acquainted with the StreamYard stuff. So forgive me for that. So this is WWE's official statement as read from GameSpot. Uh, Even though they had 8 hours to rehearse and construct their match, they claimed that they were uncomfortable in the ring with two of their opponents, even though they had matches with those individuals in the past with no consequence. Monday Night Raw is a scripted live TV show whose characters are expected to perform the requirements of their contract. We regret we're unable to deliver as advertised tonight's main event. That last statement is particularly funny. We regret that we were unable to deliver as advertised tonight's main event. If you are a watcher, if you are a purveyor of WWE content, you automatically know that's BS because that company has no problem at all promoting things for weeks and weeks and weeks and then just pulling the rug out from under you. That's what they do in that company. That is one of the hallmarks of WWE in the last year is advertise one thing and then like do something else. You know what I'm saying? That's just what they do in WWE. Again, you could get mad at that, or you could just kind of accept it and move on, which is what I typically do. I just say, hey, this is just something that these cats in WWE are going to do. And there's really nothing I can do about it. All right. So, anyway, so I want to unpack just this statement right here. I won't keep you guys long because I'm not as prepared as I want to be. But I won't keep you guys long. But I do want to unpack this statement and why I have issues for it with it. So so Monday Night Raw, this part of the statement. Monday Night Raw is a scripted live TV show. That much is true. Whose characters are expected to perform the requirements of their contract. So I want to unpack the WWE characters. They are performers, right? I've heard people even go as far as to say WWE talent, they're actors. And I have a problem with that on so many different levels, right? About, oh, we are actors, we're performers and stuff. So this is why this idea of WWE's performers being actors and characters on a TV show, that's not 100% true when you really sit back and critically think about it. I'll give you an example. Let's take Tom Cruise or let's take Sylvester Stallone. Sylvester Stallone is an actor, right? In movies, Sylvester Stallone plays Rocky Balboa. So he's got a bunch of movies, at least two of the Creed movies, and five of the Rocky movies. Was it six, maybe seven of the Rocky movies? He's playing Rocky Balboa. When Sylvester Stallone goes on the talk show circuit, however, or when he goes on the interview circuit, however, he is no longer Rocky Balboa. He goes to these talk shows as Sylvester Stallone. He's able to be himself in these interviews. When WWE wrestlers go on the red carpet, when they go on interview circuits, whatever, they are expected to be who their character is. Sasha Banks, for example, when Sasha Banks goes on the interview circuit, she is expected to be Sasha Banks. She's not allowed to be whatever her real name is. It's so Sasha Banks is so known as Sasha Banks that I do not even know what her real name is without Googling it first, right? I think her name is Mercedes. Naomi, I know her name is Trinity because she at least got to be Trinity on that reality show, but they are not characters. They are always in characters, or if they are characters, they always have to be in characters per the demands of that job. So that's kind of like disingenuous to kind of say, oh, these two are characters when they go on in other shows, other places, they're expected to be their character. When Sasha Banks was on Hot Ones, uh, when Sasha Banks was on Hot Ones, she did not get to be the person that that she is in real life. She had to be um the character. So the best thing for these people to do in WWE is to have a character who is modeled after the real person, and that's just turned up a little bit. So Wikipedia says Sasha Banks' real name is Mercedes Justine Kaisner Vernado. Okay. So that is her real name. Her real name is not Sasha Banks, but when she appears on things that are even outside of WWE, she's expected to be Sasha Banks. Same with Naomi. Naomi is expected to be Naomi. So, yeah, they get to be their character. They're playing a character, but they are also um, playing that character 100% of the time. And that's got to be understood to kind of have a better understanding of the frustration that these two women might be going through. Now, I've never met Sasha Banks or Naomi for that matter. I'm just big fans of their work. I love what they do. Optically speaking, when I watch WWE programming and I see these women, it never looks like they are getting treated the way they're supposed to be treated. In my opinion, it always comes across as they're getting some kind of burial or punishment, or just even worse in my eyes is just WWE management doesn't see them as superstars. WWE management has put a ceiling over Sasha Banks, over Naomi, and aren't allowing these women to live to their full potential. Sasha Banks and Naomi, whether you agree or disagree with how they handled themselves, as far as walking out, or instead of sticking around, some people believe they should have, done the show and left after the show. Um, it's not for me to judge, but that's what a lot of people are saying. The one thing you cannot deny is Sasha Banks and Naomi are two black women working in a white man's world, a white man's WWE, who you who sees the vision of what WWE should be through his old white eyes. And I think what happens a lot of the times is the people in WWE they're kind of complacent. They're set in their ways. Sasha Banks might have a good idea. Naomi might have a good idea, but because Vince McMahon sees things the way he wants to see them and they're not getting listened to, it could be a frustrating process trying to explain yourself, trying to make your case. And the difference between WWE of 2022 and the WWE of 2016 is if you were a talent on that roster, you had no choice but to put up with WWE's bullshit. In 2022, there is another company, and that other company is AEW. Now, say what you want about AEW. AEW is viable competition to WWE. And Sasha Banks and Naomi, if Vince McMahon decides he's going to release those women, they're going to go to AEW because they are good. They are the shit. And they both know that they're good. And they both know that they are, in fact, the shit. That is why they get away with what they get away with, and others don't get away with it. And I think there's a lot of jealousy in the wrestling world as a result of that. I think you have wrestlers online, and I won't name names, wrestlers who are never as big as Sasha or Naomi, wrestlers who never even looked at a main event seed in WWE. Naomi has won the world title at a WrestleMania on one of WWE's main in one of WWE's main events at WrestleMania. This is a fact. Naomi has done this. Sasha Banks has wrestled in the main event at WrestleMania for the WWE title, holding the WWE championship. This is another fact. The wrestlers that I see complaining about these people being unprofessional don't have the luxury of quitting on a company and not getting fired. I think this is a source of a great deal of contention for a lot of people in the wrestling community, is the fact that Naomi and Sasha Banks can say, hey, this is stupid. F this. We are going home, and still be on WWE's payroll the next day. Not too many wrestlers in that company have that kind of power. If WWE saw no value in them at all, they would be released by now. But WWE knows that if you release those two women, all they're going to do is go to AEW, make a buttload of money, and likely be treated better, be involved in better stories, and that'll be the end of the day. You know, this is a constant in WWE. And this is the thing that wrestlers sometimes don't seem to understand, because WWE has been the dominant company for so long. And now that you have another dominant company, I think people don't understand the psychology of business. It is the job of the employer to keep your employees, even though technically in WWE they're not employees. They call themselves independent contract. WWE calls their wrestlers independent contractors. That's not necessarily true, because when you work for WWE, you do not work anywhere else. But I digress back to the original point. Um, Typically with a business, the business model, the job of the boss is to keep employees happy, is you want to keep the people who work underneath you happy and fulfilled in whatever it is they're doing. And the WWE, those two WWE wrestlers were not fulfilled. If they were fulfilled, they wouldn't have walked out like this. And we saw the signs with Sasha Banks for years. And if you really think about it, we saw the signs with Naomi as well. We saw these women put up with a lot of bull crap on WWE television and just kind of take it and smile. Sasha Banks has been doing this for upwards of probably, let me see, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. Probably over 7 years. Forgive me if I don't get the numbers exactly right, but she's been putting up with this crap for a long time. Naomi, kind of the same thing. Naomi's been um, putting up with this bull crap in WWE. I want to say probably over 10 years, maybe. And everybody reaches a breaking point, and not everybody handles their breaking point the same way. And I'll tell you this much: Naomi nor Sasha Banks are the ones who made this a public beef. They quit WWE backstage behind closed doors. WWE are the ones, Vince McMahon is the one who released this public statement and caused this internet turmoil and have us having this conversation right now. They could have just let them go home, handled it backstage, and none of us in the wrestling media space, in the Twitter space, in the online wrestling space would have known about this. But they didn't. Um, and I just don't understand how some of the wrestling journalists, some of my favorite wrestling journalists, white wrestling journalists for that matter, are going on TV saying things like, oh, Sasha Banks is unprofessional. Naomi's unprofessional. They didn't want to do business. They handled things the wrong way. Um, all that is well and good, but these people are still talking as white men. Sean Ross Sapp didn't do that. I didn't see any of the Fightful journalists do that. I don't know Sean Ross Sapp. I do interact with uh, Phil and Righteous Reg from Grapsity. Those two are my boys, and I've interacted with Will Washington before as well. Those are some good dudes. Sean Ross Sapp, from what I've seen of him, from the way he covers wrestling, from the way he podcasts, he's a professional guy. Those are good people. People like Brian Alvarez. Brian Alvarez is a good person, but sometimes when he talks, I think he is culturally insensitive, because the stuff that I've heard him say about Sasha Banks and how she doesn't want to do business and how she should have just rode her contract out until it was over with, and that like that, and basically comparing Sasha Banks and Naomi to white men and what white men have done in that situation. Look, the day of the Geechee is over. We are getting tired of that in our culture. We don't want to do that anymore. So I had to kind of get that out of the way. Um, Keith Lee, when he was in WWE, he tells a story on Jericho's podcast, Talk is Jericho. I'm paraphrasing, but he tells the story of being in WWE and Vince McMahon never understanding his character, saying he sounds too smart, and he sounds too smart and proper, and it doesn't match his size and the way he looks, or what Vince McMahon's stereotype of what a guy that looks like King Keith Lee should sound like. This is problematic for me. And while Vince McMahon never said it, might never have never said it was about race, when you tell a black man that he doesn't sound the way he's supposed to sound, you you can only take that in one way. You can only take that in one way. So anyway, I've been going on for about 31 minutes now. I don't see any comments or whatever, and I don't blame you because I'm still learning this StreamYard crap, and I'm not the most technically savvy person on the planet. So, but yeah, I don't. The reason why I got into wrestling podcasting with my colleague Nate, the reason why we created the Nubian Wrestling Advocates is because we felt that the wrestling media space didn't really have a lot of people on there that were going to speak on wrestling from an Afrocentric point of view. Wrestling is really spoken about from a Eurocentric point of view. So while all the white wrestling journalists, what they see is two performers walking out, not doing business the right way, and just leaving things behind, I see two frustrated black women who had enough, right? And thought that they were better than what they were being presented. And that's just the way I see it. I don't see and if you call yourself an ally and you are white, you have to at least open your open your mind up to that possibility, to that to the prospect that yeah, these are two black women. We don't know what it feels like to walk in the shoes of a black woman, of black women in a white man's wrestling world, for a white man's vision of things the way he thinks they're supposed to be. I was watching WWE a little over 10 years ago. I remember them calling Mark Henry, taking this brother, proud black African American brother, having him on TV and calling him the silverback gorilla. They might not have said gorilla, but they were definitely calling him a silverback. And this is shit as a viewer that I had to sit home and listen to and watch, right? So I'm now supposed to give WWE the benefit of the doubt over Sasha Banks and Naomi. Brian Alvarez really upset me with his coverage this week. Again, I've met Brian Alvarez. I met him at one of the Starcasts before. I'll probably meet him in Vegas when I go out there this week. Brian Alvarez is a good guy, and Brian Alvarez is better than this. And on today's Wrestling Observer Live, I want to say this before I go. Mike Sempervive tried to kind of steer Brian Alvarez in the right direction. Sempervive was like, hey, man, you can't completely dismiss what these women are saying. I'm paraphrasing what Sempervive said, but he basically told Brian Alvarez that this is it is not a foreign thing to believe that WWE might have done something racist in this situation. And we don't know if they have or they haven't, because Naomi and Sasha Banks haven't released a statement yet. But I just thought that Brian Alvarez was very unprofessional. I'm just joking about. I don't mean unprofessional. I just didn't think Brian Alvarez covered this properly. He covered this story like he was covering two white men who were stars in the wrestling business. He didn't cover this like, oh, there's two black women that WWE went out of their way to publicly embarrass online by putting all of their business out to the media for the purposes of what? Getting ahead of the story. That's what they did. And as a black man, that should offend me. If it doesn't offend you, that's your business, but it offends me. And not just as a black man, but just as a human being. And I'm again, for me, I know how human beings work. Again, my PhD is in organizational leadership, business psychology, and people quit jobs all the time. WB just has it set up in a way where the business model has been such to where WWE's been the only game in town for so long, and they've owned the wrestling business. And now there are two viable names in town, and these wrestlers are starting to understand their power. Sasha Banks knows she could go to AEW. Naomi knows she could go to AEW. So I had to get that off my chest. This is always frustrating to talk about. If Brian Alvarez or any of the other white wrestling pundits want to get at me and want me to explain the case for Sasha Banks and Naomi a little bit more eloquently with some face-to-face interaction, I got no problem doing that. Those people are my people. You know what I'm saying? And I'm just not gonna be sitting back and watching people in the wrestling media treat these women like they are like they're Stone Cold, like they're The Rock. No, they're not. They are black women working in the white man's world and playing by the rules that the white man laid out for them and doing the best they could, and did the best they could with that stuff for almost a decade until they've gotten tired of it. And now, enough has been enough. So anyway, thank you for listening. I think I'm really done this time. Think I've exhausted. I've been at it for 39 minutes. So if you got any questions, leave it in the comments below. Send me an email, whatever you want to do. Send me a tweet. Just whatever, man. I'm out this piece. Peace out, y'all.